Picture yourself sitting beside a fire 400,000 years ago. You are not Homo sapiens yet. You are something older, something harder, something that has already survived 2 million years of this planet without any of the tools modern humans take for granted. The fire is yours because your species figured that out long before you were born. The cave is yours because your group fought for it. And right now, one of them is sitting across from you, pressing a hand against their forearm where a sharp rock caught them during the day's work. They are not panicking. They have seen this before. Every body in that cave has seen this before, because this is what bodies do. They get cut, they bleed, and then something extraordinary happens that nobody needed to understand for it to work. Within 20 seconds, the bleeding begins to slow. Within 60, the first architecture of a clot is forming. Within minutes, the wound is sealed. That exact response, that sequence, is running in your body right now, ready to fire in the next 20 seconds if you cut your finger opening a package this afternoon. The order hasn't changed. The timing hasn't changed. The biology hasn't changed. What happened in that cave is what happens in your kitchen, your car, your office. You carry a 400,000-year-old emergency protocol in your blood, and most people have never been told what it actually is or why it works the way it does. The coagulation cascade, that is the scientific name for what your blood does when you are wounded, is one of the most conserved biological systems on the planet. Research published in the journal Blood by the American Society of Hematology describes how the 11 coagulation factors present in your blood today have been identified across all vertebrates, which means this system dates back approximately 500 million years. But the specific cascade sequence running in modern humans crystallized much earlier in our evolutionary story, with evidence that it reached its current form in our direct ancestors well over 400,000 years ago. Here is what that means in practice. Every cut you have ever had in your life, every scraped knee, every kitchen knife slip, every paper cut you cursed under your breath, triggered the same sequence of biological events that a Homo erectus individual triggered sitting by a fire in a cave. The same molecules, the same order, the same result. The first thing that happens is not what most people think. Most people assume blood clotting is about the blood itself thickening at the surface, but the very first response happens in the blood vessel wall, not in the blood. Within seconds of a wound, the damaged vessel constricts, it physically narrows, to slow the flow of blood before any clotting has even begun. Research in physiology confirms this is mediated by a chemical called endothelin-1, released by the damaged lining of the blood vessel. Your body does not wait for a clot. It immediately reduces the volume of blood reaching the wound site. That is step 1, and it happens before you have even registered the pain. Step 2 begins within the first 20 seconds. Your platelets, tiny cell fragments that circulate in your blood by the hundreds of thousands, detect the exposed collagen fibers inside the damaged vessel wall. Collagen is normally hidden. It is only exposed when the vessel is breached. When platelets sense it, they interpret it as an emergency signal and rush to the site. They change shape. They extend projections to grip the collagen surface, and they release chemical signals that recruit more platelets. Within the first minute, they have formed a temporary plug, a physical barrier over the breach. It is not stable, it is not permanent, but it buys the time your body needs for what comes next. The third stage is where the cascade earns its name. Coagulation is not a single event, it is a chain reaction. Research from the American Society of Hematology describes it as an amplifying sequence. Each activated protein in the cascade activates the next, producing an exponentially expanding response at the site of the wound. The end result is the conversion of a protein called fibrinogen into fibrin, long, flexible threads that weave through the platelet plug and create a reinforced mesh. This is the actual clot. Research published in Blood confirms that the first fibrin strands begin to appear within approximately 60 seconds of injury, and within several minutes, the plug is completely reinforced by this fibrin architecture. Your body built a scaffold, a temporary structure, inside your own vessel to hold the repair in place, and it did this in under 5 minutes. No instruction from you, no conscious effort. The ancient program simply ran exactly as it has run in every cut sustained by every human ancestor before you. Now here is the part that most people who understand blood clotting still miss. The clot is not the end of the sequence. The clot is only stage 3. What comes next is the part that explains why some wounds heal cleanly and others scar badly, why your body feels inflamed around a cut, and why sleep matters more to wound recovery than almost anything else you could do. Once the fibrin mesh is in place, the wound site becomes a biological construction zone. According to research in the journal International Journal of Inflammation, the inflammatory phase begins immediately after the clot forms, and its purpose is not just to fight bacteria, it is to signal the next wave of repair cells to arrive. Within the first 6 to 8 hours, your body floods the wound with neutrophils, the immune system's first responders. They scavenge the wound site, they eliminate bacteria that entered through the breach. They release chemical signals calling in the next wave. At 48 to 72 hours, the neutrophils begin to stand down, and a new class of cell arrives, macrophages. These are the long-term managers of the wound. Research on wound healing immunology published in PMC describes their role clearly. They continue the cleanup work the neutrophils started, but they also release growth factors, chemical signals that trigger the formation of new blood vessels at the wound site, new collagen, and new skin. The macrophage phase can last from day 2 through to day 5. And it is during this window that your body begins the actual structural repair of the tissue. This is not a modern discovery. The evidence for ancient wound care in early human communities is written directly into the fossil record. Research published in Science Direct, examining healed injuries in Neanderthal and early Homo specimens, describes how trauma, fractures, wounds, penetrating injuries, shows consistent signs of healing across the Middle and Upper Pleistocene. These individuals survived, their wounds closed. The same biological sequence that researchers now map in clinical studies was running in their bodies in caves, on riverbanks, and on open savanna, with no medicine, no dressings, and no antibiotics. Just the cascade, just the sequence. What makes this sequence remarkable is not its complexity, it is its conservation. Research in molecular biology and evolution identifies that the 11 coagulation factor proteins driving this cascade have been found in every vertebrate studied, from jawless fish through reptiles to primates. The central mechanism, thrombin activating fibrinogen to produce a fibrin clot, has been retained across 500 million years of evolution. That is the definition of a biological process that works so well that evolution never needed to replace it. It was already optimal, and it is running in you. You have probably never thought about what happens inside a cut, really thought about it. You press a cloth against it, you wait, it stops bleeding, you go on with your day. But in those minutes while you were pressing and waiting, 11 distinct proteins were activating each other in sequence. A platelet plug was being built and reinforced, a fibrin scaffold was being woven, and a microscopic construction crew of immune cells was already mobilizing for a repair job that would run quietly for the next 3 weeks. Your body does not improvise when you get hurt, it runs a program. And that program is so old that research suggests it predates the emergence of our genus entirely, meaning the blood running through your veins right now carries wound response machinery that is evolutionarily older than the first human being. The first thing your ancient ancestors did after a wound, almost always, was to stop. They sat, they rested. Movement drives blood pressure up. Elevated blood pressure at a fresh wound site pushes against the forming platelet plug before it is fully stabilized. Early humans who kept walking bled more. Early humans who rested bled less. That behavior was selected for, not consciously, but because the ones who rested survived at higher rates. And your body today still expects that first phase of stillness. It is the first thing the sequence needs from you. The second thing they did, which modern medicine is only beginning to formalize, was to sleep early and sleep long after an injury. Research on circadian rhythms and wound healing confirms that skin cell proliferation, DNA repair, and growth hormone activity all peak during sleep. The macrophage phase, the repair crew your body sends in after the first 48 hours, is heavily regulated by circadian timing. Disrupted sleep prolongs the inflammatory phase and delays the arrival of the growth signals that instruct your body to build new collagen. Your prehistoric ancestors who were injured rested more, not less, precisely because their bodies were running a repair schedule tied to darkness and rest. If you want to go further with what we just covered, the clotting sequence, the repair phases, the exact conditions your body needs to heal, I have written a 21-day guide on what your prehistoric body still requires every day. It covers the biology of recovery, sleep, and cellular repair in detail, step by step. It is linked in the description. But first, let us get inside the moment where this cascade was truly life or death, and what it felt like for the first human bodies that depended on it. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine something. You are not you right now. You are that Homo erectus individual 400,000 years ago. It is late afternoon. The light is amber on the grass. You are carrying a sharpened stone tool, and your group has spent the day working at a carcass site, cutting, scraping, working the bones for marrow. This was not easy work. The tools were effective but imprecise. The hands were always near the cutting edge, and at some point during the day, the stone slipped. Not deep, not life-threatening in itself, but a cut, real, bleeding, open to the dust and bacteria of a world with no sterile fields, no antiseptics, no wound dressings. In that world, an infected wound was frequently a death sentence, and your body, that prehistoric body, knew this in the only way biology knows anything, through 400 million years of selection pressure that killed the bodies whose wound response failed and preserved the bodies whose wound response ran correctly, in order, every time. Within 20 seconds, the vessel constricts. You can feel this as the initial bleed slows almost immediately after the cut, the body buying time before the platelet response can even begin. You press your palm against the forearm instinctively. That pressure helps. It reinforces what the vessel is already doing, reducing the space the blood has to move through. The platelets arrive. They are not summoned consciously. They are summoned by chemistry, by the exposed collagen beneath the vessel wall that is only visible now that the wall has been breached. The platelets recognize that collagen as the emergency signal it is, and they pile in. They extend arms. They grip the surface. They send out chemical messengers that call in more platelets from the surrounding blood. Within a minute, a plug is forming. You do not feel this. You feel the pain of the cut itself. That sharp, specific signal that tells you something important has happened and that you need to attend to it. But the cascade that is now running beneath your skin is invisible to you. Your body has already taken over. It is already working, and it is running in the exact order it has always run. The fibrin threads begin to appear at approximately 60 seconds. Fibrinogen, a protein that has circulated in your blood since the moment you were born, is being converted by an enzyme called thrombin into fibrin. Thrombin itself was activated by the cascade above it. The cascade above that was activated by the tissue factor exposed at the wound site. Each step triggered the next, exponentially, in a matter of seconds. And now, fibrin threads are weaving themselves through the platelet plug, reinforcing it, turning a temporary patch into something that can hold. By the end of 5 minutes, the wound is sealed, not healed, sealed. The repair work is only beginning, but the immediate crisis is resolved. The blood has stopped. The plug is in place. The fibrin architecture is reinforcing as the proteins continue to cross-link beneath the surface, and the first immune responders, the neutrophils, are already arriving at the wound site to begin the clearance of bacteria and debris. That night, while the group sleeps close to the fire, something else is happening in the wound site. The inflammatory phase is running at full intensity. The neutrophils are doing their work, and because the body is horizontal, because cortisol is falling, because growth hormone is rising, the repair signals that tell cells to proliferate and lay down new collagen begin to appear. The circadian timing of the wound response is not a coincidence. Sleep is not recovery from the healing process. Sleep is where the healing process happens. 48 hours after the wound site changes character. The neutrophils begin to withdraw. The macrophages, the longer-term repair managers, arrive in force. Research on wound healing immunology confirms that macrophages do something that neutrophils cannot. They release growth factors. These chemical signals trigger new blood vessel formation at the wound site, instruct fibroblasts to produce new collagen, and begin the process of rebuilding the structural integrity of the damaged tissue. This phase can run from day 2 to day 5, and it is the phase that most people interrupt. By not sleeping, by not eating enough protein, or by returning to full physical activity too soon. The prehistoric human in that cave did none of those things. They could not. Their environment enforced the correct behaviors. They rested because moving on an injured limb was painful and dangerous. They ate because food in that world meant protein and fat from animal sources, exactly the nutrients the macrophage phase needs to produce collagen. And they slept when the light disappeared because there was no alternative. Their wound healing conditions were, by accident of circumstance, close to optimal. Yours, statistically, are not. You cut your hand at 10 in the morning and you go back to typing. You stay up until midnight. You forget to eat enough that day. And your body runs the same ancient sequence, the same cascade, the same phases. But it runs it in conditions that are the opposite of what the sequence was built for. The clot still forms. The sequence still executes. But the repair that follows is slower, more prone to infection, more likely to scar, and more likely to leave residual inflammation in the surrounding tissue. This is not about dramatic wounds. It is not about surgery or emergency rooms or deep lacerations. It is about the dozens of small wounds your body manages every year, and the hundreds of micro wounds at the cellular level that the same cascade systems manage constantly, invisibly, without your awareness. The wound response your blood runs is not just for cuts. The inflammatory signaling, the platelet and fibrin architecture, the macrophage repair phase, these same systems are involved in tissue turnover, in muscle repair after exercise, in the daily maintenance of blood vessel walls. This is not a once-a-decade biological event. It is one of the most continuously active systems in your body. The disclaimer that belongs in every conversation about biology: this video is educational information, not medical advice. If you have a wound that is not closing, is showing signs of infection, or concerns you in any way, speak to a medical professional. What we are discussing here is the science of how the wound response was built, not how to treat specific injuries. Now let us talk about what you can actually do with this knowledge, because this is not history. This is biology operating right now, and every small wound you have for the rest of your life is an opportunity to either help the sequence run or to work against it. State before, you get a cut, and you mostly ignore it. You stop the bleed, stick on a plaster if it is deep enough, and go back to whatever you were doing. The reason why? Your body has become so efficient at the first 3 steps, vasoconstriction, platelet plug, fibrin mesh, that you do not feel the wound response failing. You feel fine. But the repair phases that follow the initial clot are being run in suboptimal conditions, and the body has no signal to give you that this is happening. The action, based on what your prehistoric body still requires, is straightforward. For the first 30 minutes after any wound significant enough to bleed, stop. Let the vasoconstriction and platelet phases run without the pressure of elevated heart rate working against them. That night, make sleep a priority. The macrophage phase and collagen synthesis are circadian-timed processes, and missing the sleep window genuinely slows them down. And eat enough protein that day. The collagen your body needs to rebuild the tissue is made of amino acids, and if you are under-eating protein, the repair phase is working with inadequate raw materials. The result you will notice: wounds that close cleanly, with less redness and swelling persisting beyond 48 hours. Research in wound healing biology confirms that the inflammatory phase, while necessary, should resolve within approximately 5 days for a typical minor wound. If you are still seeing significant redness and swelling at day 5, the inflammatory phase has been prolonged. That is almost always a signal that the body lacked either sleep, protein, or both during the repair window. Most people notice the difference when they deliberately support the repair phases versus when they ignore them. The healing time drops, and the scar quality improves. This is the same result your prehistoric ancestors were getting, not because they knew the biology, but because their environment forced the right conditions. No artificial light to extend the day. No processed food to replace the protein they needed. No culture of pushing through pain. Their injuries healed in the same wound environment their bodies were built for. Your body is still built for that same environment. You just have to choose it deliberately now because the world stopped choosing it for you. 400,000 years ago, the wound response running in that cave was the difference between life and death. An infected wound in a world without medicine could kill within days. An animal bite that did not clot could bleed out. The bodies that carried a fast, efficient, well-sequenced wound response survived and reproduced. The bodies that did not are not represented in the gene pool. You are here because the sequence worked. You are here because it kept working, generation after generation, through every environment your ancestors crossed. And it is still working. Right now, somewhere in your body, a blood vessel wall is being maintained, a microbreach is being sealed, a platelet is responding to a signal you will never consciously receive. The cascade is running quietly, continuously, in the background of everything you do. It does not ask your permission. It does not need your awareness. It only needs the conditions to complete its work, the rest, the nutrition, the sleep, that your prehistoric body was built to receive and that your modern life keeps interrupting. You are not separate from this ancient biology. You are it. The proteins running in your blood are the same proteins. The sequence is the same sequence. The timing is the same timing. What changed is the world around the biology, not the biology itself. Everything in this video connects to a bigger picture. 11 things your prehistoric body still needs every day that most people have never been told about. That video is on this channel. It is the one to watch next. Next, there is something your prehistoric body does to prepare for a hunt that your adrenal glands still execute every morning before you have even opened your eyes. That video covers why your cortisol peaks at a precise time each morning, and what happens when the thing it is preparing you for never arrives. It is the video after this one. Your body has not forgotten what it was built for. Every time you bleed, every single time, it runs the same ancient program in the same ancient order, with the same ancient efficiency that kept your ancestors alive across 400,000 years of a world that was not remotely safe. The only question is whether you are giving it what it needs to finish the job.